Today, I'm going to just briefly cover this. Might be a refresher to some of you guys, but if it's not, we're going to hopefully give you some good information. So are you all presenting at FERC or at the Undergraduate Research Symposium? You can thumbs up that too if you are. Any of you going to FERC? Yeah. Perfect. I'll see you there. I'll be with you guys, not on the bus, but I will be with you guys at FERC. And then if not, I'll see you at the Connell Center in April, which is exciting. So we're gonna get started. We're gonna go straight into just the headshot tips, okay? And I use my picture because why not? It's important to have a good headshot, whether that be on your poster. Some people like to put them on the poster, some people don't. Some people use them for abstract books, things like that. But it is important to have a good headshot. Your cell phones, even the new cell phones and new smartphones, can take a great headshot, especially in portrait mode. Some tips for that is have someone else take your picture. And if you can't, prop up your phone. And if you have an Apple Watch or an iPhone, your Apple Watch can serve as your camera remote, which is a nice feature. So you can actually take your own headshot just by standing there. Always use a neutral background, or at least something that can have that portrait mode puts that nice blur effect. So you don't want it to be too distracting. Like, so you don't want a lot of people in the background of your headshot, or you don't want, I guess it depends. If you're an art major, you might want a big graffiti wall behind you, but you might not for a professional, maybe a med school application or anything like that. So just keep in mind, have a nice neutral background. Lighting, even lighting, so natural lighting is best. You can see my headshot up top. That is actually fake lighting. That's additional lighting that was added to the room for me to take that headshot. And then leave space around your head and shoulders so you can crop your photo. So the top photo actually started out quite big, but I was able to crop it into the area that I wanted to. Some people want square photos, like when we Center for Undergraduate Research, when we do our virtual symposiums, we want square photos. So just keep that in mind. So you can see in the bottom photo too, face is kind of dark, although a good photo, face is kind of dark, not great lighting. You can kind of see how messy the lab looks, whereas in the top photo in the lab, you can't really tell that it's messy. It's much more blurred out. So just things to consider. Lighting is key though. That should be your number one thing, is make sure you have good lighting for your photo. Right. Now we're gonna get into some poster tips. The goal of the research poster is to just have a visual representation of your product, of your project. So it's not to tell the person that's reading your poster everything about your project. That's your job as you're standing there. So the poster is just supposed to be a visual representation. You're not supposed to have 8,000 words and paragraphs on your poster, okay? Characteristics of a good poster is that it's organized, very organized. It's concise, it's very few words on it. It's self-explanatory, which means that if they do walk up to it, they do understand what your project is about. And it's visually appealing, which means it's going to draw that person to your poster just by looking at it. Some elements that you might want to include on your poster. It should always include the title, authors, and institution. Background and or introduction, don't always have to include both. Methodology, you're always going to want to have your methods on there. Results, if you have them. People do present on projects that don't have results yet. Conclusions, so any conclusions you've gathered from those results, and maybe some future directions that you have. Optional elements that you might also include is an abstract. You don't need it most of the time. Most conferences have your abstract in the book, or they might just have your title. It just depends. References, and I'll talk a little bit more about references in a minute, and then acknowledgements. And so acknowledgements would be anybody else that helped you with your project or grant funding or anything like that. And that's also going to come up in a second. When it comes to authors and institutions, the presenter should be the first name. It should be the first name on the poster. Additional authors should be listed in order of contribution. The last name should be your faculty mentor. Unless you use only two people, then of course it would be your name and your faculty mentor. You would also include the department and the institution. So it would be Department of Chemical Engineering, and that would be the College of Engineering at the University of Florida. So make sure that you're using a little bit more detailed information. If an abstract is included, you're going to want to make sure that that abstract matches what you submitted to the conference. Any graphics that you put on your poster, they should enhance or complement your work. They should be very easy to read. They should not be blurry. You want it to be either photos of things that are relevant to your project, equipment, but don't overdo it. Don't make it just like this giant collage of pictures. Just use very high quality or open source images, and do not use cutesy clip art or low res pics. Avoid using a background graphic that competes with the text. So you can put a background graphic in the back, like our template has a background graphic, which is just like a gator background, but it's muted all blue, but it provides some type of visual element, but doesn't detract from the actual poster. So just make sure that your background image isn't detracting from the rest of it. And you can kind of see, I'll go back to this example poster. They chose colors and designs that really represented the poster itself. So they're talking about algae, they're talking about wetlands. The poster has those types of colors in it. It has kind of wave designs. Those types of things are very visually appealing and will actually attract people to your poster. So don't be scared to include some visual elements in there. So we will go back. References and acknowledgement. I always get this question, so I always like to include this. You're only going to cite your references that you actually have on your poster. Just because you have a bunch of references in your paper does not mean it needs to go on your poster. You're only going to cite references that you put on your poster. So a lot of times, most people don't even have references because they're only putting on their poster their own words. So keep that in mind. Make sure you're using a reference style that's consistent with a major journal in your discipline. A lot of people choose APA 7th because it's mostly system and education, and all of them use APA 7th, but if that's not in your discipline, then you would choose something else. You're going to acknowledge those who assisted or contributed in your research in the acknowledgement section. You're going to include the source that funded your study. So if the project that you're working on was included in a grant, you're going to put that in there. You're going to include the grant number if possible. And then if we are sponsoring you, or you have gotten a scholarship from us, or you are traveling to FERC and we're paying for you to go down there, you would want to use the CURB program logo or the logo for your funding source like NSF or anything like that, if it's applicable. So when you design your poster, you're going to prepare text for each section. So you'll have text for your background, your methods, your results, your conclusion, your future work. But it could be minimal. It could be one bullet, or it could be one sentence, or it could just be a caption. And you're gonna, excuse me, you're gonna work around that. You're gonna select the graphics that are relevant to your research. So if you have results that really display what the results, your project, then that's what you're gonna put on there. And then you can always sketch a layout on paper first using a logical arrangement. And a lot of people usually use this 3-panel design that you see on the right, where it's actual 3 rows or 3 columns. Some people use 4, it just depends on your preference. Some people don't use a 3 or 4. And we'll look at that in the next coming slides. There's some directions, and I have these included on our website, and I have a link for those in the presentation, and I may be able to put that in the chat for you guys, we'll see. But if you go to our website to students, you'll see presentation tips, and everything's on there. But there's directions on how to size them. Most posters are 48 inches wide by 36 inches tall. You can actually select that in PowerPoint or in Canva, whichever one you're using to design. And then you would export the file, and you can select PNG or JPEG or PDF. I think most places will print any of those styles, okay? PDF is usually the easiest because it puts out a nicer quality. So if you're going to print to target copy, I would suggest exporting it as a PDF. Landscape layout instead of portrait is most common. And as you're designing it, you're going to want to like zoom in and out, make sure everything's lined up properly, and use the align tools. You're going to use text boxes for titles and text, or smart art or things like that. And you can copy and paste text straight from Word, so you don't need to hand type everything. I know you guys probably know this, but I like to mention it anyways. And then you'll insert figures and graphics, and then you can create tables directly in PowerPoint, or you can import them. These 2 templates we have available, there's actually 4 templates on the website. There are 2 PowerPoint templates for both of these poster designs, and there's 2 Canva templates that can be used. And both of those are available on that link on the website, Let me see if I can, I don't know if I can copy it. No, I can't copy it, but I can maybe do it at the end. Some other examples from last year's FERC, and this is the same thing. So this is but one type of each design. So this is a 3-column design, and then what they call the better poster template that was designed by a student from the University of Michigan, and it focuses on like one major sentence that you just put to catch people's eye, and then once they move closer, they can see those 2 side columns that actually have the relevant poster information on it. So 2 different designs, 2 different looks, completely up to you which one you want to do. Some faculty do not like the one on the right. Some faculty really like the one on the right. So it just depends between you and your mentor what you want to do. Let's talk about some presentation tips. So you're standing by your poster, and the first thing somebody's going to ask you is probably, tell me about your work, or tell me about your research, or tell me about your project, and you're going to have an answer to that. So before you go to your conference and before you're standing by your poster, you're going to prepare a little 2 to 3 minute verbal explanation. You're going to tell your readers why your work matters, because they're going to ask you that question. They're going to say, so what do you plan on doing with this? Or what was the point of the study? Or do you plan on doing X, Y, Z? They're going to ask you all those questions. So just be ready for that. Also be personable and engaging. I didn't put this on there, but you should smile. Smiling is good. Don't spend too much time with one person. If you spend too much time with one person and somebody walks up and you're still talking to only the one person, they may end up walking away. And you want to try to spend as much time with as many people as possible. Be prepared to answer questions. We just talked about that, and admit when you don't know the answer. So if they ask you a question, you can say, you can have ready responses made, right? Sorry, that was outside of the scope of the project. That's always a good response. Or I'm not sure, it might be something we might want to look into the future. Things like that, because inevitably somebody's going to ask you some question that relates to your project in some small way, but wasn't quite covered in your project. Just be prepared with those little snippets. And we're just flying through this information. General conference tips. So just some things that you want to be prepared for. You need to dress professionally. So if you don't have business attire, get some. There's a place on campus that will actually loan it out. They will actually also take professional headshots for you. I think it's called the Gator Closet. But take a look. I think if you Google it, you'll find it. They will actually loan you suit, tie, shoes, everything you would need to be professionally dressed if you don't have, a suit. Look at the program of the conference ahead of time, especially if you're going to a national conference. You're going to want to really spend some time going through that program, picking out specific workshops or presentations that you want to go to, other posters you want to stop by, people you want to introduce yourself to. There's probably a lot of major players at some of these conferences that you might want to introduce yourself now to, because you might end up going into a graduate program and working with these people. Don't be scared. Just go introduce yourself and say, I'm so-and-so from the University of Florida. I'm here presenting my project on XYZ. All right. Sell yourself. Okay. Do that. Be prepared with the self pitch for that. Okay. Just like I said, I'm Jennifer Moses. I'm from the University of Florida. I'm really interested in self-assessment and how it's used in AI and whatever. All right. So just be ready with that stuff. At a lot of these conferences, especially FERC that's coming up, there's also graduate school recruitment. So I want you to be ready for that as well, because this is a great opportunity for you to learn about other programs that are happening or other places, and for you to ask questions. So research the programs that are on the graduate school recruitment list, rank them according to the preference of how you want to talk to them, prepare questions to ask ahead of time, and prepare answers to questions that they might ask you, like, what are you interested in studying? When will you graduate? What are you planning on doing after graduation? What kind of program are you looking for? And what your research interests? Just be ready to answer those questions, because it's good to go ahead and have those connections with those graduate schools. You also are going to want to bring a professional resume or a portfolio or a CV or whatever you're working on, whatever's more appropriate to your discipline. Bring a paper to write down the responses to their questions so that you have them. And then gather as many materials as you can while you're there. So if you're still unsure about what graduate school you want to go to, gather all the papers, gather all the information, so you know that when you get home, you can look at all that, and that might help you decide where you're going to end up going. That is all I have. That might be the fastest workshop I have ever done. Does anybody have any questions whatsoever? Okay, good question about the poster. So in the past, when we've had virtual symposiums, you've had to submit your poster ahead of time. Now that we're back in person, fingers crossed, nothing major happens before April 7th, all you will turn in on March 17th is your abstract and your headshot for the abstract book. Your poster you will bring with you and you will set up at the symposium. So it's due the day of the symposium. So we don't need to see your poster ahead of time. Your faculty mentor does need to see your poster ahead of time. As far as the specific material, apologies. No, you can print it on whatever paper. There are places all around campus that you can present posters. I think some of them are like $7 to present on or to print on campus. And then at Target Copy, it usually runs around between $18 to $30, depending. So you just have to decide. The stuff that's on campus isn't as great quality. The stuff at Target Copy, you get a nicer poster printed. And usually we provide some coupons, but we have to get those from Target Copy. At the symposium, there will be an easel and poster board set up for you. All you do is you go in and you just clip your poster up. So you'll be provided with that. It's gonna be a lot of fun stuff at the symposium in April. As I said, it's our first time doing it in the O'Connell Center. We're expecting about 500 students. So we're really excited, 500 presenters. So we're really excited about it. Anybody got any more questions? All right, so this little QR code takes you to a feedback form, so you can provide feedback on the workshop. If there's anything that you felt like I did not touch on and that you would like me to touch on in the future, please leave the feedback there. I will definitely update my presentation if it needs it, but don't forget that I do have some of these tips and stuff on our website. And of course, if you have questions, I live in Newell Hall, so you guys can come visit me. I mean, I don't live here, but I do 9 to 5.
That's right. I'd like to remind everyone to fill out the feedback form once again, in case you haven't already. And thank you for all your questions, and thanks for Mrs. Moses for the presentation and for insight into presenting posters and for just general conference behavior. Because I know I haven't really been to a conference, and it's good to know, a lot how to navigate what these intimidating things can be. So all the advice is appreciated, and I'd like to thank you again.
Yeah, no problem. All right, you guys have a great day. It was good to see y'all.
You too. Thank you, Ms. Moses.
All right, no problem.